Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Flo and today's video is a reading vlog but with a twist. My favourite booktuber of all time is Sarah Caroli. I hope I've said her surname correctly. And I'm obsessed with her and her videos. Like, all of my favourite books that I've read recently have come from her recommendations. So I thought, what better way to do a reading vlog than to read only books that she's either read recently or recommended recently. So I'm going to do 5 books and I'm going to do a mixture of genres, although heavily weighted more towards like contemporary romance because that's my favourite genre anyway. So the first book that I'm going to pick is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and Sarah says that that's like a mystery thriller. I don't know much about it. I've just taken the recommendation, trusted it. It's something to do with the FBI and like, I actually have no idea. So I haven't even read the blurb. So I'm going to trust that. I'm going to pick it up. And I think I'm going to get the paperback instead of audiobook. I find like romances are easier to listen to in audiobook, whereas like mysteries, thrillers, fantasy, I think I need to read the paperback or at least do a mixture of both. And then the second book is her favourite book so far, I think, at the moment, which is a fantasy book, and it's Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I have wanted to get this book since being on the book buying ban. It's been so painful like seeing it in shops and not being able to buy it. So I'm going to pick that up, and again, because it's fantasy, I'm going to read it in paperback, and because it's been so hyped, I think it needs to have like, I need to read it in paperback basically. But Lauren is actually a booktoker as well, and I've seen so many of her videos as she was like posting, going through the process of writing the book. So I'm really excited to support her and buy it as well. And I have seen nothing but amazing reviews about this book. I think it's like, especially on my feed, been just as hyped as like Fourth Wing. So fingers crossed. Sarah says it's very similar to like Hunger Game vibes but with a twist, and I haven't actually read Hunger Games, but I'm trusting her recommendation. And then the next book I feel like I have to, because again, it's one of Sarah's all-time favorite books, which is, if you know her, you would guess, Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I'm gonna listen to the audiobook, and I've actually started the audiobook because I can get it on my free trial of Scribed. So I'm currently listening to that. I'm like an hour into it, maybe, not even that much. I think I'm at the very, very beginning. I started it last night, and apparently people have said, so I have already read Every Summer After, and I really didn't like that book. I almost DNF'd it. My mum read it too and she really did not like it. But people say that that book was kind of a copy of this one, so I'll be interested to see whether this is like a better version of that book or if I just don't like the whole like friends to lovers trope. We shall see, but I'm hoping to finish that within like the next day or so. But I think I am. If I enjoy it, I will also pick up the paperback when I go shopping next weekend, because Sarah just always recommends it in every like book recommendation video she does. That is always up there, so I feel like I have to do it and I have to read it. And then another book that I'm going to pick up is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This was in Sarah's autumn book recommendation video that she just did. I have read all of the other Chestnut Springs books, and this is the one I'm left with that I still need to read before the final one comes out, which I think is called Hopeless. And so I'll probably, what I did with all of them was I listened to the audiobook, but I also picked up the paperback, so that will be being added to my shopping basket next weekend if I can find it. And then I will listen to it in audiobook probably at some point this week, because I've always enjoyed listening to like Elsie Silver's books in audiobook. And then finally, a book that I already have on my Audible account because it was in the sale, I think it was in like the $2.99 sale or something, is The Problem with Forever. And this is a book that Sarah has recently read and she rated it 4 stars, and so I thought that would be nice to add to this vlog as well. I've said it before, I don't know much about it, so I'm gonna go in kind of blind to it and just trust that Sarah's 4-star recommendation will mean that I will also enjoy it. It seems very promising. I think it might be slightly emotional as well, in which case I'm gonna love it. So those are the 5 books that I'm gonna read in this reading vlog. We've got 1 mystery thriller, 1 fantasy book, 2 contemporary romances and 1 YA. I will let you know how I go. I will vlog the whole thing, and I maybe even will vlog my shopping trip as well, unless I do it on a separate video. But I will keep you updated, and let's get into it. So please ignore my thumb. I dislocated it the other day. But I have finished the first book recommendation from Sarah, which is Love in Other Words, and that is her OG book recommendation. So of course it was the first one that I had to listen to. I got the audiobook of it. It's by Christina Lauren, and the tropes are basically friends to lovers, and then there's a cheating trope in it as well. I rated it 4 stars in the end. And the reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because I found the cheating trope, it didn't really convince me, and I wasn't 100% invested in that. And I also don't love friends to lovers. I don't think I've ever given, a friends to lovers book 5 stars, but the fact that I don't love that trope and I gave it 4 stars, I think that says a lot. Like, I really did enjoy this book and I flew through it within a day. Some of the plot points I questioned, like I said, the cheating trope, but then what followed that, the other plot twist that follows that straight after, really threw me off. I wasn't expecting it, and that made me love it so much more. I felt really connected to the characters. I really liked them, and I was rooting for them to kind of reconnect after the 11 years that they stopped speaking. So overall, really enjoyed the book. 4 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend reading this book if you haven't already. To provide a mini update, I am a third of the way through The Problem with Forever, and I'm listening to the audiobook version, but because I am enjoying it so much, I had to pick up the paperback when I went book shopping. And the type of genre is right up my street. I think there's romance in it, but obviously I'm only a third of the way through, so I haven't fully got to it yet. But my guess is there's a romantic twist between the 2 main characters, Mallory and Ryder. But there's a lot of like emotional trauma and baggage between their relationships. They grew up in the same foster home, and that foster home was not a nice place. And 4 years later, they're now reconnecting. It's from Mallory's point of view. So you're getting snippets of the past and sort of the history that they suffered and everything like that. And then you're also seeing the present day and how she's now adopted and sort of where her life is going. But they end up meeting because she ends up going to Ryder's school. And so she's currently in like the settling in stage right now, and I'm hoping I can see some friendships blossom and like her character develop, because she is quite shy because of sort of the history that she had with growing up. Like, it's no surprise that she's shy. So I will keep you updated. I've got 9 hours left of the audiobook, but I end up speeding it up. So I've got somewhere between like 4 or 5 hours, I think, left. So I will update you when I get to the end of this book and tell you how I feel about it. So I've officially finished The Problem with Forever, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which was exactly the same as Sarah, I think. So the reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because even though I really loved the story and I thought like the genre was right up my street, like the plot, fully like everything I love in a book, the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was that I predicted one of the plot twists, and that took away some of the emotion. Like, I didn't get like as sad or upset as like I guess the author probably intended, but also kind of what I wanted. Like, I know that sounds silly that I want a book to make me cry, but I want a book to make me cry. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend reading it. I finished it so quickly. So yeah, I'm really happy that I enjoyed this book and would highly recommend. I have also actually finished another book which I was going to listen to on audiobook that was in Sarah's recommendations. I can't remember off the top of my head now what she rated it, but I rated this 5 stars. It was my favourite book in the Chestnut Springs series by far. I thought it would be my least favourite because I wasn't too sure about Winter, Summer's sister. So Summer was the main character in the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, and Winter is her sister, and they kind of become like enemies to friends as siblings, and they have loads of different like family problems. So it was really interesting to get her side of the story. I think the one thing I would say, she is a really good person in this book, Winter, and you really love her, and the way she's portrayed in the first few books, I thought it would be really hard to fall in love with her or like her as a character myself. But it was easy, but so easy that it almost felt like she was a different character to the person that was portrayed in the other books. But I still absolutely gobbled this storyline up. I loved it. I loved the main characters. You just really love, and you're really rooting for Theo and Winter. Some of the like plot twists at the beginning and like the jump in timeline and stuff was really unexpected, which I think is a good thing. And I actually, when I was going through the beginning of the book, I was like, oh no, I don't think I'll like where this is going. but I really did. It was just a really easy listen, and like I said, I literally ate it up in a day. So I had no time to even like vlog me reading it or any reactions to it because I sped through it so quickly. So I'm glad I read this and continued the series, and I look forward to reading the next one. And that actually wraps up all of the audiobooks that I was going to read from Sarah's recommendations or books that she's recently read. The next ones to go through are Powerless in paperback and The Naturals, which I'm also hoping to read in paperback because it's a small book, so stay tuned. So 2 days ago, I started The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this is like my first ever sort of like crime type book that I've read. I have read like a psychological thriller recently, which was Verity. And I had to read that when I was at my parents' house because I was so scared, and I heard that it was a little bit creepy. So I was like terrified that I wouldn't be able to sleep and that I wouldn't be able to get through it, like living alone in London. So I read it at my parents' house, and I'm glad I did. So I was a little bit nervous in starting this one, but because it's YA, I thought it can't be that bad. And it's not. It's basically, it follows a girl and she joins like an FBI program, and she is considered what is called like a natural, and she's like a natural profiler. Like she can read people's personalities without even speaking to them. And so all of the students on this program, she's 17, and they're all slightly gifted and would be an asset to the FBI in solving crimes, but they only work on cold cases. And her mother was murdered, and so like that's her motivation for joining this sort of program. So far, so good. I'm halfway through, and I've only been reading it for 2 days, and I've been at work and I've been busy every evening. So that's pretty good going for me. It is a small book. I love how floppy it is. So I can't wait to actually get into the second book. I know that I'm gonna finish this series, which is great. So I'm gonna spend the evening tonight reading. It's dark out, it's raining, so I will read, but I will say, because there's like a murder element to it, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to read it really late at night because I like started dreaming about it last night, and I don't want nightmares basically. One of the good things about doing these reading vlogs or getting recommendations from different people is I have really been brought out of my comfort zone. I'm strictly a contemporary romance person, but since starting this YouTube channel, I have been reading fantasy. I've done a whole fantasy reading vlog, and now I'm reading, I guess this is crime slash thriller maybe, but it's YA as well. So that's like two different genres that I don't really jump into that much. And then I've already read and I listened to the audiobook of another YA, and then the next book in this reading vlog after this is a fantasy. And I read Fourth Wing recently. I'd read ACOTAR for my fantasy reading vlog, which I think I posted recently. So if it has already been posted, make sure to check it out. But I read ACOTAR, then I went straight to Fourth Wing. So I needed a break, and actually I wasn't craving romance. So this was like the perfect book to move on to have a palate cleanser. But I'm loving reading different genres, and this has really opened my eyes up to what other books are out there. And now I feel like crime, fantasy, and maybe some YA will be standard inclusions in my future TBRs. So this is great. I think it's not a 5-star read, but I'm leaning more towards, I think it'll be a 4-star, but we'll see because I'm only halfway and there's a whole series to go. So I will keep you updated. I'm going to spend the evening reading. So hopefully I'll get through this in the next couple of days. Add on to my thoughts of The Naturals, I have now officially finished the book. I finished it last night. It was really good. My thoughts haven't really changed insofar as nothing bad has happened. I didn't think anything worse of the book. So it's great, like a solid 4 stars like I predicted. There was a plot twist at the end. I kind of had a feeling and I kind of guessed it, but not in a obvious way to the point that it ruined the plot. It was just nice confirming my suspicions. And so with that book done, I am now on to Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm really enjoying being in my fantasy era, so I'm loving getting into this book. She writes really, really well. I have only read one chapter, but I am kind of getting ACOTAR writing vibes to the point where, like, I'm really making myself sound dumb here, but I really like simple writing, especially when I'm trying to follow fantasy. So I'm worried that I'm not going to get into this as much because the writing is so highbrow and very good. And I know that sounds really, really strange to want a book for the writing to be worse, but I hope I really like it because I'm enjoying reading fantasy. I'm excited to see where it goes. The weather this weekend is terrible, so I'm gonna have some like rainy reading days, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much I enjoy this book because Sarah loved it and she constantly talks about it, hypes it up, and recommends it to all her Booktube subscribers. So I'll let you know how I go. It is the last book in this reading vlog, so hopefully we go out on a bang. So I'm partway through Powerless and I'm over halfway through now. I've got just over 200 pages left. And I remember when I first gave an update, it's been a few days now, and I think I said something about how the writing was really descriptive and I was worried that it would be like ACOTAR where I couldn't keep up with it. But despite the fact that the language is really, really descriptive, which I think is pretty normal for fantasy books anyway, because I guess you've got to do the world building, I'm following it and I really do like it. I did look on Goodreads at some of the reviews and a lot of people say it's quite tropey, and then the two books that she says that it's similar to, Hunger Games is one and is Red Queen another. I don't know the name of the book, but the author herself says it's kind of a merge of those two books, and I think she gets a bit of criticism on Goodreads because people are saying that the book isn't that original, and so it really does take the plot of those two books. And I know what Hunger Games is. I haven't read the books, I've watched the movies, but I really do get Hunger Games vibes because it's basically the main character. She is an ordinary, so she's a normal human and she doesn't possess any powers, which is what the elite have. And if you're an ordinary, usually you get unalived by the male main character in this book, and so she's pretending that she's psychic, and then she ends up like saving his life, and that causes her to then be nominated for these trials. And so she's going into these trials and people think that she has a power, but she's literally ordinary and she's going through these trials basically trying to survive and trying to, I guess, con all of the elites into believing that she is one of them. The book has a really good plot. Whether it's original or not, I don't know, because I don't really read a lot of fantasy. Apart from the ACOTAR series and Fourth Wing, this is like my third go at fantasy. So I'd say it's good and I'm following it and I'm reading it. It's really easy to read. I would say I've noticed she uses, so instead of saying like God or hell or something like that, the characters use the word plagues, and they use it way too much. I actually would be interested if I ever got the ebook, seeing how many times the author actually uses the word plague throughout this book, because it's at least once on every page, and so that's a little bit repetitive. But I would also say that it's supposed to be enemies to lovers, but I don't really get the enemy vibe. I feel like the main male character fell in love with her pretty quick. That's my only hesitation, but I do really like it. It's a really easy read, and it's probably veering more towards the 4-star mark than 5-star, I guess because of some of the things I've said where she repeats words too much. I don't fully get the massive enemies to lovers, and I feel like some of the tension is quite tropey. There's a lot of like, who did this to you? And I don't feel like it's a wholly original book. Like I feel like I've been here before, even though I don't read a lot of fantasy. So for someone that has read the fantasy books that she says is a mix of this, but also like if you are a fantasy reader, you might not love it, but I haven't read either of the books, so I'd say if you've read both of the books that inspired this one, you might find it less original and maybe not enjoy it as much. But it is a really good book and a really easy read. Very pretty cover. Really like the characters in it, and I really like the plot. I feel like there's a lot of drama and I don't know where it's going, which I think is important. I think that's a good thing with any fantasy book, is that if it's unpredictable, then you're going to enjoy it. So yeah, I will keep reading and update you when I get to the end. Okay, so I have just got to chapter 33 of Powerless, which is the end of the first trial. And the whole time throughout the trial, when when the couple decide to pair up and sort of work together through the trial, the time that they spend together, I feel like he's quite cringy. He says these really forced, tropey things, like the whole "who did this to you?" I know everybody loves that, but I feel like the author just slotted it in there because she knows people love that, as opposed to it being organic. And neither of them answer the question, so they keep repeating "who did this to you, who did this to you," until one of them answers, and it just felt really forced. And I've just been cringing a little bit at some of the stuff that he says. I know it's not really realistic anyway because it's fantasy, but I'm just a bit cringed out by, I think, his dialogue. I think he's too much, but I'll keep reading. They haven't even kissed yet. It's weird because I don't think it's slow burn because he so obviously falls for her within the first few pages, but then they don't kiss or anything, and I feel like they've only just declared that they have feelings for each other, and still it's subtle. But to the reader, his feelings are so obvious, so I would say it's not slow burn. It's strange, I can't explain it, but yeah, I'll keep reading and see how I go. Okay, so I've read a little bit more, and I would say to the point where I was questioning whether the plot is that original. I ended up going to a bookstore today and I saw Red Queen and I read the back of it and I was like, oh, that's pretty much half the premise of this, and then the other half is Hunger Games. So I know she admits that that's where she gets her inspiration from, but I can really see people's points with saying that it's not original, and this is making me now want to read Red Queen. I am still enjoying this book. The only thing I would say, I know it's slow burn, but I feel like, and I said it yesterday, is that he admits his feelings too early for it to be a traditional slow burn. But I would say the element between the two brothers is, my dog sighing, is interesting. But I would find they've only had one trial, and that's how far along we are in the book. And I think there might be 3 trials, or maybe there's just 2, but if there's only 2 trials, I want there to be at least 3. And I just feel like I think the structure of the plot has been a bit slow in some places. I really wish that the trials were earlier on and then there was more of them and less, not pointless scenes, but less dialogue-y character relationship building scenes, because I don't think that they're needed, because Kai is just really obvious about how he feels about her. But I am still enjoying it. I think it will be a 4-star read, maybe 3.75. So I would put it, I've never rated a book 3.75, but here we go. I've only got 150 pages left till the end, so I'm hoping I'll get through it this weekend and then I will be done. So I've officially finished Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I would say my previous rating, suspicions of 4 stars, was correct. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. I don't think that it was a full 5 stars because I found all the action happened in the last 100 pages and it took ages to get to the first trial, and then the last 2 trials were, I swear, spaced within 100 pages. So I think the timing of everything was a little bit off. And then also I loved that it was a slow burn. I love a slow burn romance, but like I said before, I found that he caught feelings for her really quickly and they were really obvious, so it didn't feel like a full slow burn. But then they didn't really do anything beyond kiss. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird slow burn for me. Like, I guess because this is going to be a trilogy, there's going to be so much more and a lot of tension, but the plot twist at the end and like some of the things I did not guess, and I thought it was amazing. Like, I was so gripped at the end of the book, like I couldn't put it down. It's now Wednesday, but I finished this on Sunday night and I just didn't go to sleep until I'd finished it. It was really good. So I would definitely recommend this book. And I feel like, thinking about all of the books that I've read in this reading vlog that were recommended by Sarah Caroli, I think I've had a really good experience. I think most of them were 4 out of 5 stars, and then I gave Reckless 5 stars. So I will definitely keep getting influenced by Sarah and reading all of the books that she recommends, because I've had some really good ones, and I love that like I've done a big mix of genres. That's been really great. And I think this vlog, plus like reading a bit of fantasy recently as well, has really opened my eyes to what else is out there, because I always read romance. So yeah, I feel very inspired. I really enjoyed doing this reading vlog, and if you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments, and if you can recommend any others that might be similar to the books that I've enjoyed in this vlog, do let me know. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.